Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and welcome back to Alex Asks. And last time, I asked you lovely lot, what new features would you like to see in Splatoon 2? Well, as usual, here's just what a few of you have to say. Also, apologies for this being a week late. I know it's terrible, and I'm very, very sorry, but, well, blame Mario Kart. The Great Gamer //EST 2016 says, My Splatoon 2 changelog. Oh, let's get stuck in. New weapon, welly boots. Allows you to walk through enemy ink without taking damage from it, but it only lasts for 15 seconds. Invisiblaster works just like the Splatter Shop, except the special ability is Invisible Ink, which is ink the other team can't see. New maps. Ocean Mal does exactly what it says on the tin. A mal, which is the UK pronunciation of mall, though a lot of people say mall over here now. Let's just move on. Cyan Skate Park, a large skate park that feels like a classic Splatoon stage. Hope you like it, Alex. I'm assuming that the welly boots, being like Wellington boots, you know, sort of the real thing that actually exist. I think in America they're known as galoshes, something like that. Basically big boots made of rubber. Nice. I'm assuming you're using them as like a sort of like a secondary weapon, and you know, like instead of a bomb or something. What are they called? I think they are called secondary weapons. Sub-weapons, that's what they're called. Or something along those lines, because you can't really use that as a primary weapon as far as I know, but it's an interesting idea nonetheless. You can sort of already do that to a degree with like the ink brushes and the rollers, because obviously you're essentially walking over enemy ink and leaving your own in your wake, although it's just before you, so it's not really in your wake. The invisible ink, that's an interesting one. I think, you know, sort of maybe it could be implemented in some way, or maybe rather than, you know, sort of it makes, you know, sort of the ink that is fired invisible, maybe temporarily it makes all ink the same color for the enemy team so they don't know what's what, and so they have to be more careful. That's an interesting idea, but I don't know how balanced it would be. As for the maps ideas, well, a mal, yeah, a mal would be a good thing. In fact, I would be very surprised if there wasn't something along those lines, something like a shopping center or something like that. And the skate park, well, we've seen them before, no doubt we'll see them again. In fact, isn't there one already? Pretty sure there is. TJ10 the King says, I would add a special, like 3 mini ink strike missiles that are quite a bit smaller, but you can put them all in different locations and there is no alert that they are coming. I feel like the specials are underpowered in Splatoon, and what I've seen of Splatoon 2, well, possibly, but the thing is, you've got to get the balance right, you know. Specials are not that difficult to get. It's not like it's something that only happens once a match per player or something like that. You can get them, you know, sort of if you're clever, you can get them every 20 seconds or so. That might be a little bit extreme, but you can get them fairly often, so I don't think they are too underpowered. But, you know, everyone has their own opinion. The 3 mini ink strike idea, we've kind of already got that with the Tenta missiles. They sort of lock on, and I'm assuming you mean using the map like a traditional ink strike, which I don't know, I think they really are trying to move away from the map on the whole because it's quite difficult to use. Maybe they could. I mean, you sort of have to do it when you're doing the, what is it, when you go kapow and it goes sploosh out like that. I really like that one. I can't remember what it's called, like splashdown or something like that. You can use that. Obviously you need to use the map when you're super jumping, and you can use that mid super jump. Honestly, that is the best way to use it because there's very little warning and it is super, super good. But who knows, maybe in the future they will introduce more map-based things. I don't know. I just don't know. Woody D167 says, I want jean shorts just so my inkling can suffer through wet jeans. In short form. Ukulele Pichu64 says, I want a special that allows you to lose all the different kinds of bombs. That's use all the different kinds of bombs, not lose, like I just said. So let's say you use a burst bomb, then a splat bomb, then a suction bomb, then a seeker, ink mine, and curling bomb. It wouldn't be as reliable as, say, burst bomb rush, since you only have one thing to think of, but this could just be better for the added chaos of it, or just add tingle. I think what you're saying about chaos is really interesting because I think that would, in a way, be too chaotic, and it's a bit unreliable. It's an interesting idea, but I just don't sort of practically. I don't know. I mean, it sounds fun, but I can't imagine many people would choose it because it is so unpredictable. You know, sort of you throw a splat bomb and then a burst bomb and all that sort of thing. I think people also, how would that work with the? What would your sub be? Random Dave 7 says, add odd job to the game, slappers only. You know, I'm not even sure whether he's talking about Splatoon 2, because most of the people seem to be talking about Breath of the Wild, which is fine, because that's kind of what the topic of the previous video was about, but you know, that's also not what I asked. Honestly, like an ink brush thing, like where if you could just, I mean, to be honest, you could do it in Splatoon 1, just only ink brushes allowed, and you just slap, 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 slap. That would essentially be slappers only, and if you can have a smaller inkling, there's your odd job. Don't do that. Jetslinger7654 says, it would be fun if they added a perk on your shoes, so that when you super jump as a squid, it leaves an area of ink around where you landed. So a bit like the, I may be calling it the wrong thing again, but like the splashdown thing where you go kapow, and it goes sploosh. But, you know, sort of on a very small level, I suppose, more than anything, it would prevent you from landing in enemy ink, which can be very detrimental. You know, somebody just spreads a load of enemy ink where they see someone about to be landing, and then you can't even run away if you want to. So that would give you another option. I think that's pretty cool, and balanced, and genuinely sensible. Rejoice! Arceus Arcade says, in Splatoon 2, I would like to see paintbrush that looks like a lawnmower, and it would have the special ability called Bikes on Water for no apparent reason. Haha, that is stupid. Why did I still post this comment? Why indeed. Captain Sheepies says they should add a surfboard weapon that you ride on, spreading ink behind you and consuming your ink. Obviously. The main way to get kills would be to jump on enemies' heads. Doing tricks on it would be fantabulous, and I can already imagine the Inkling holding the surfboard by his or her side when you win a match. In a way, it kind of sounds like, again, the ink brush and the roller and that sort of thing, only instead of it being in front of you, it's behind you, and I can sort of see the logic where you're coming from, but a surfboard with ink coming out of it, then again, we've had weirder stuff, haven't we? We've had buckets. Well, that is sort of liquid-based. I don't know, call me a skeptic. Nick Mac says, for Splatoon 2, I'd love to see the SNES Super Scope incorporated into the snipers. As for a new sub-weapon, maybe a timed remote drone. Personally, I'm not so sure about the Super Scope idea. I mean, it's very out there, and it's, you know, not like it's something that I have a real fondness for or anything, or the fact that maybe it's called the Nintendo Scope over in Europe, or anything like that, and the fact that it just is the weirdest looking peripheral that I think possibly even exists, but at the same time still looks fairly functional. Why is the fire button up here though? That is stupid. In all honesty, I could really see this being some sort of charger. Even something, you know, may not even necessarily be a charger, but just for some, you know, some way to include this, I think would be fantastic, because it is just, it's got a wonderful design to it, and I honestly can't put my finger on quite what it is. I think maybe because it looks like a mini bazooka, but it's got this big scope, and it's got this orange end to it, and it's got the handle here and the shot. It's just a nice thing, and yeah, I think that'd be cool. As for the drone thing, well, I mean, we've kind of already had something similar to that in the sprinkler. I know maybe that's not exactly the same thing that you imagined, but the whole idea of something unmanned that you sort of leave behind, and it spreads a load of ink or something like that, because I'm not sure you'd be able to control it per se, unless it was a super, but I'm pretty sure you said it was a sub-weapon. Yes. And as such, I don't know. I mean, you can't really control something like that. Maybe if it just sort of flew off maybe in a predetermined pattern or something, and it flew over maybe dropping blobs of ink, maybe something along those lines. But then if the enemy shoots it, then it blows up in their colored ink. That would be pretty cool. Maybe, I don't know. It's difficult to imagine. But if you've got a better description of what I mean, then let me know. Although I probably won't say it because there are too many comments on these videos. Fane says, Splatoon 2 must have a toothbrush so you can brush your squid sister's teeth with ink. Don't look at me, I've got no idea. Red Gallifrey says, I feel bad for all the other subs that don't get a bomb rush. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a dozen mines or beacons everywhere? So stop the segregation of bomb rushes. Give me my beacon bomb rush. You know what, that sounds ridiculous at first, but the more you think about it, the more you think it could actually work. You know, just to be able to throw down loads and loads of beacons, and they are annoying for the enemy. You know, people can super jump to them without them knowing and stuff like that. So if you really needed loads, and maybe it would allow you to go over the limit to, you know, which is usually 3, I think. So maybe you could put down 8 or something like that, or an additional that don't count towards your limit. So you've already got your 3 down, and you stick another 3 down, or maybe 5 down or something like that, and you end up with 8 and something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool, you know, if you really wanted to give everyone the biggest chance of super jumping in. I don't see that being totally useless, because Reasons, which by the way is the best name possible on YouTube, says for Splatoon 2, I'd like to be invisible and have an exosuit with infant ink. Or if either of those are possible, just make me a giant so I can crush the enemy other team with my foot. That seems reasonable, right? I think I've been had with this one. I don't think it's serious. Call it a hunch. And finally, Jake.06 says, I would like the Flood nozzle spray to be a special weapon. You would only have it for 3 to 5 seconds, and you would be able to spray the opposite team's ink, which would get rid of it, but it wouldn't spray your team's ink. It would also deal a tiny bit of damage if someone gets hit by it. I have to say, it's an interesting notion, you know, the idea of being able to clear the enemy ink away without, you know, using your ink to cover it, which sounds detrimental, but if it was like, you know, sort of a very powerful attack, and it covered a lot of area, then I can see that being quite useful, actually. You know, maybe on the enemy's ground, and so the last few seconds you can't reach up there with your ink, but you've got this flood thing and it's got good reach or something, and you just shoot and you clear their ink in the last couple of seconds just to take some points away from them. You can't get them yourself, but you take them away from them. Interesting thought. I'm not sure whether it would work in practicality, but it's interesting thought nonetheless. Thank you for your contribution. And of course, massive thanks to everybody who left a comment. Unfortunately, I can't read all of your comments out because I will die before that's even possible, but you do have a chance to get one of your comments read out in the next episode. And so my question for you this week is, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, what do you want to see? Do you want to see more tracks? That's a really obvious one, and if so, what tracks do you want to see? Old ones, new themes, old themes? Let us know what you want down there in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you swish, swoosh, swash towards that subscribe button, or something along those lines, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.